Hi, I'm Laura from LH Professional Hair, and today we'll be doing a colour contouring technique. Firstly, we need to make sure that your client's hair is in good enough condition to carry out the service. Carry out any necessary tests, including a skin test, and make sure any products you used are used in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. It's also important that you and your client are wearing the correct PPE. Contouring is a modern technique used to enhance features, skin tone, and also to change the face shape. The ideal face shape is oval for any cut or style, so that's what we'll be looking to do. If your client has a different face shape, such as a heart, triangle, diamond or square, we'll be looking to add shade and darker colours to narrow the face and using lighter shades to highlight and widen. The first thing to do during your consultation is pull all your client's hair back so you can see their natural face shape. My client's face is a heart or diamond shape, so we'll be looking to use 4 colours on her hair. The first will be a lighter shade applied to this top section to elongate the forehead. The second shade will be applied to the roots, mainly around the sides here to narrow the temples and the jawline. The third shade will be to cover through the mid-lengths and ends and blend through, and the fourth shade will be a lighter shade at the bottoms here to highlight that area. I've now sectioned off my client's hair ready to start colouring. We've sectioned it into 5. The top section I've taken using the eyebrow arches as a guide for width. The second sections are at either side, straight down from the crown to the ear. And the final section is from the crown straight down the back of the head. I've now mixed up my colours. Shade 1 will be for the highlights, shade 2 is for the root area, shade 3 for the mid-lengths and ends, and shade 4 for the highlighting around the face. I'm going to be doing the sections about 1 centimetre apart. I want these highlights to be visible, but not to look stripy. I like to use foils for this technique, but you can also use mesh. Mesh is quite good if you want to see your development. So I'm just highlighting through this top section. I'm doing my highlights about 1 centimetre apart, and I'm doing medium to fine weaves. I want this to be quite a subtle, natural look, just so it highlights the top of the head. For a more dramatic effect, you could add slices in or even do a more block coloured effect. It's also a good idea if you're using a bleach-based product or a colour, not to start too close to the roots to avoid seepage and allow that colour to expand. It's also important when folding your foils to make sure they're sealed at every edge, as we'll be colouring that they're sealed at every edge as we'll be colouring the rest of the hair, and we don't want those colours to mix. Just popping in the final foil now. So as you can see, we've now completed the highlights on the front of that top section. This is just again to highlight the top of the forehead, so we're working towards that more oval face shape. The second thing I'm going to do now is apply the root shade through all the sections. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply my root shade around the outline of the sections I've created. I'm keeping quite a lot of tension on the hair and not too much product on my brush so I can control it more. I'm just painting about 1 inch or 2.5 centimetres down the hair shaft. So I've started this section by putting my colour on about 1 inch deep or 2.5 centimetres all the way around the outline of the section. And now what I'm doing is taking 1/2 inch sections and just saturating them about 1 inch deep. I'm using the root colour on both sides of my section to make sure the hair is fully covered, and then using my fingers to wipe down any excess. It's important to keep tension on the hair so that it doesn't move around out of place too much and you can work more cleanly that way. The shade I've picked for this client's roots is not too far away from her natural colour. This will make the maintenance easier for it. It's just got a slight tonal change. We're adding some ash in as the rest of the colours have an ash tone to them as well, so it will blend nicely. Again, it's important not to pile your brush with colour. You need enough on it to saturate the roots, but not so much that when you drag it through, it's going to coat the rest of the hair. As you can see now, we're starting on the second back section in exactly the same way. Painting the outline first. This way just gives you clearer definition of where you're working. Applying the root colour about 1 inch to 2 inches down the hair shaft and smoothing through. Taking 1/2 inch sections to make sure you saturate those roots. So now we're working up through the sections, applying that root colour. Again, making sure that you don't ply your brush with too much colour, as we don't want to get too much through those mid-lengths and ends. And making sure I don't push them down onto the previous section. I want them to stay quite separate so I can pick them up again. It's important as you reach these top sections to make sure that you look at your previous section to make sure that you're smoothing the colour down to the same height. It's also important to make sure you smooth out any excess. This is because excess colour can leave patches on the hair or make it look uneven. As you can see, I'm just applying the root colour to the side sections as before. It's important when doing this front area to make sure you cover the hairline, but don't go too far over, as we don't want the client to have a big colour line around here. Again, working in 1/2 inch sections. About 1 inch down the hair. As you can see, as I'm working up these side sections, I'm just adding a little bit more colour and smoothing that through a little further way down the hair section. This is because I want to create more shadow around this temple area. I'm keeping the sections quite small up these sides, starting at the bottom with a root smudge of about 1 inch as we did on the previous back sections, and as I'm working up the hair, just smoothing it out slightly more, just to create shadow around this temple area. Again, taking very small sections as I'm going to be working the colour about 1 inch at the bottom section, and gradually, as I'm going to be bringing the colour down about 1 inch at these bottom sections and gradually bringing it further down the hair shaft as I get to the top of this section. This is to create shadow around the temporal line and more lightness around the bottom of the face. So I'm just applying the colour to the opposite side section in the same way that I did the previous one, making sure the first section at the bottom has a root of about 1 inch deep, and as I work up the hair, gradually making that more so the top section has a root of about 2 to 3 inches. This is just to add shading around the temple area. So now I'm working through the top section in exactly the same way. I'm working from the crown towards the front. I find this is a good way of doing it because then you're not putting coloured hair pieces over your client's face. Just making sure that I really saturate up to the roots where those foils are to make sure I don't miss any hair out. Again, applying this root shade the same as I did all the other sections, just about 1 inch down and smoothing through in between these foils. My back is really hurting. You can put that in if you want so they know the struggle. So as you can see, the reason it's good to work from the crown towards the front of the head is it keeps the sections out of the way, it's nice and neat. The foils are folded back the same way that you put them in, and you're not going to get any of that colour dropping onto the face. It's then important to just make sure you catch these tiny hairs around the outline. So now I'm going to start applying the second shade to the mid-lengths and ends, which is slightly lighter than the root colour. I've just popped a piece of foil over the top of the hair here so I can clip to it and make sure that none of that darker colour saturates any of the ends here. When I'm applying this shade, I'm starting it just below where I applied the root colour and then smoothing it down and up into that root colour. So now we're just applying the mid-length and end colour to these back sections in the same way that we did the roots. I'm making sure that I apply the colour just below where I ended the roots, and then we're going to do that smudging, bringing the colour down between your fingers and saturating those ends. Make sure when you're smoothing through, you always go just above your root colour and smooth downwards to saturate the ends. If you want to at this point, you can use a comb to go through the hair just above the point where you're smudging the roots. As you're going through the sections, you may find that they start to tangle towards the end. This is where you can use a comb just to smooth through that colour. Again, it's important to keep your sections relatively small to make sure you can really saturate that hair. This second shade is not too dissimilar to the roots. It's just slightly lighter but the same ashen tone. Just smoothing it through to make sure I get a nice blend. And if you like, you can use your comb through the mid-lengths and ends just to smooth that through if the hair is starting to tangle. So I'm just working on the second back section now in the same way I did the first, making sure I apply the colour just below where the root smudge is, and then using my fingers to work it upwards and then down the hair shaft to really blend those colours together and saturate those ends. Again, if you want to, you can use a comb through those ends just to smooth through and make sure the colour is distributed evenly. Now that I'm applying a different shade, I've also changed my gloves just to make sure there's no cross-contamination of the colours. As you can see now, I'm returning to the top section and applying the same shade through the mid-lengths and ends as I did through the back sections in the same way, making sure I smooth that colour through just above where I added the root colour, saturating all the way down to the ends. Again, I'm working from the crown towards the front to make sure that any hair with colour on is not going to be in the client's face. So now I'm just doing the top section in the same way that I did the back sections, just smoothing this colour through the mid-lengths and ends, starting just a little way below where I added the roots and then smudging up and then down through the hair, saturating all the mid-lengths and ends, making sure that that colour is all over the section. Again, it's important to make sure you have enough colour on your brush to saturate through those mid-lengths and ends, but not so much that you're going to have excess that is going to spread further. So I'm just completing this top section now. Just make sure you have enough colour on your brush to saturate those mid-lengths and ends, but not so much that you have excess that you can't smudge away. It's always better to go back and put more onto your brush than start with lots on it. So that's the top section and the back section's complete. Now I'm going to change my gloves and we are going to add a separate colour to these side sections. So now I'm going to apply my fourth colour to the side areas. As you can remember, these bottom sections are only saturated about 1 inch deep, so I'll be starting the root smudge from there. And as we work up, I'll be starting to apply this colour further down the hair shaft from the mid-lengths to the ends. This is a slightly lighter shade still, which is going to help to add highlights around this bottom area of the face, while still maintaining that shadow around the temple. So this is a slightly lighter colour still from the one I used on the mid-lengths and ends for the top section and the back sections. This is because I really want to highlight this bottom area of the face around the chin. Again, you can use your comb to smooth out that hair section.